It's almost like 30 years ago, the government going and putting a 5-star health rating on a pack of cigarettes. How are we as a society allowing our government to endorse these ultra-processed foods that are linked to cardiovascular risk, anxiety, depression, a 25% increase in ADHD-like symptoms, and get this, premature death as well?
Oh my heavens.
This is outdated nutrition science.
For those that maybe aren't familiar with your work, you're a paediatric nutritionist, but you're also a mum of 2 and the founder of the Real Food Rating. My first question for you is, what first opened up your eyes to how broken the food system really is?
Well, I've seen a lot of parents who struggle with fussy eaters, and when they look back on what actually happened in those early days, a lot of them are very surprised to find out the products they were purchasing with high health star ratings were actually full of ultra-processed ingredients and are ultra-processed foods. And they were coming to me and saying, but if I'd known that I shouldn't introduce my children to this type of product, I would have never done it. But as a nutritionist, I know that once your kids have had foods that have got just the right amount of fat, sugar, flavorings, crinkly packaging with cartoon characters or whatever the case may be, it's very hard to compete with homemade food.
It's a bit of a slippery slope.
Correct. I'm the type of person that just likes justice. I like things if you say you're going to do something, or if the package says this is high in fiber or high in protein, full of whole grains, it really should be that. And I don't like the misleading marketing because back in the day, a lot of times parents were made to feel like it's all on them. If you are making poor choices for your family, it's your fault. And as a mum who, didn't really follow the traditional sleeping rules, and
you're in good company.
Yeah, I know. I've now got a dog and a cat. They also sleep on my bed. So I'm not
a family bed.
Yeah, I know about nutrition, but as a mum, there's so many things that I get wrong, don't do it, the way that, sometimes you're told. I understand that feeling of guilt, and it's never, ever been my, intention or part of my work to make any mum feel guilty or dad, or that they've made a poor choice. So I really started looking at, where is this misinformation coming from? As a new mum, where are you getting the information that an Up and Go or a Marlow is the right choice? And it actually all started when I had my first son, and I got advice from, public health officials, and a lot of it was just not correct. So, I've been in nutrition and well-being for the last 2 decades. So over 2 decades, actually, now I'm showing my age. So I was so fortunate to have this nutritional background, but I knew that so many parents don't. And I saw things happening in my own mother's group, and I just looked around and I thought, this is not right. The system is broken. First-time parents need hand-holding. They need to be told, what are the best choices right from those first taste preferences, because that's what's shaping their lifelong eating preferences. So that brought me to, the health star rating and really looking at where that misinformation is coming from, and that's what I landed on.
It's very difficult because what is still being taught in many situations from a tertiary level is not correct. And I've seen this with my own daughter studying, she's in year 11 doing health and human development, and looking at what they were learning when it came to I don't think we can even call it nutrition, to be honest. And I said to her one day, this is wrong. And she said, what am I supposed to do? And I said, you'll just have to learn it wrong, and then I'll have to teach you what's right. But it's outdated, what's still being taught. There's not enough education still. What are we saying? It's something like 6 hours or something crazy that even your medical provider is getting when it comes to nutrition. So it's not any wonder that people are confused, or they're thinking that they're doing the right thing. Like, to your point, they feel guilty with what they're actually feeding their children. We were in an appointment not too long ago, And the health provider said to my son, well, you can just have an up and go in the morning, to your point. His eyes lit up and he looked at me and the doctor goes, Mum, is that all right? And I'm like, we'll be talking about that.
Yeah.
And it's not his fault. That's literally what is being taught. So, I mean, what do we do? Where do we start with this?
Well, Nat, this is why I have launched the petition, and I know we'll talk about that in more detail. But it's really, really astonishing and maybe even shocking. And a lot of people don't realize that all of the dietary advice, everything we are seeing is underpinned by the 2013 Australian Dietary Guidelines. They are over a decade old. This is outdated nutrition science. Nutrition moves at such a rapid rate. So what that means is anyone who's going through university now and learning dietetics, the information that they are learning is based on 2013 nutrition science. The amount of emerging research and evidence that has come out since then on ultra-processed foods, on the connection between the gut and the mind, gut health, chronic illness being affected by certain dietary choices. We have got such a public health crisis going on with overweight and obesity. But so what this means, if we actually look at it, all the food that is being, served in institutions like hospitals, childcares, and, Nat, I was Australia's first chief nutrition officer, so I saw firsthand what was going on and made presentations about how outdated, all the nutrition advice was, and in schools. So, we're dealing with a broken system, and the health star rating system is just one aspect of that. But like you said, where are the doctors? Where are the nurses? Where are the health professionals getting their information? They're not.
It's frightful, really, at the end of the day. But they rely on, well, a lot of parents especially rely on the health star rating to help them decide how to feed their children. And you've basically suggested that this could be completely misleading and probably part of the reason how we got here. So not only is the education not there, but we're relying on a system that, or a method, so to speak, or the rating that also is outdated. What made you decide to call this out? Was it just that you'd seen too many children unwell or too many instances where there were health issues that could easily be fixed by food?
So I've been calling out the system now, as I said, for over around 2 years. I started going into supermarkets before COVID. So I know a lot of people are now doing things like going into the supermarket, showing you what to swap. I started doing that back in, I think, the beginning of 2019. So, and before that, Nat, just to share with you, in 2004, I helped to create the world's leading treatment and prevention program for childhood obesity. And part of that was in the UK, going into Tesco's, Waitrose, Sainsbury's, and actually coming up with what products people should eat, what they shouldn't. It was a traffic light system. So my background in product analysis and helping families to make better choices when they're shopping goes right back to the beginning of 2000. I know a lot of families don't have the time to make everything from scratch. In 2018, I became a single mom, and my reliance on store-bought food started to grow increasingly more and more because I'm a single parent and I am so passionate about my work, and the balance, the juggle, it's not always easy. So I need good quality products in the supermarket. And what I found is that, first of all, when people want better quality products, it comes with a premium price often. Shouldn't be the case. We shouldn't have to pay
the other way around.
Exactly. We shouldn't have to pay more money for less ingredients. So that was the one thing that started to really, I started to see with families when the cost of living crisis, we need to start bringing down the prices of these good quality foods. And so I started seeing a lot of people sharing this information. This is a good swap. Here's a better swap. I myself have been doing it. And I thought, we all know that things are broken. What am I going to do to actually affect change? Because it's not just about any one of us doing this for our communities and our audiences on social media. There's a bigger vision. There's a public health crisis going on. I see firsthand how this affects families. And I just decided someone has to speak up. So I started to speak up on social media, and then I went to certain organizations and the door was slammed in my face, to the point where there were even people who loved what I was doing, but they were too scared to let their colleagues know that they, were supporting me, or they didn't want the brands who they may be working for to know that they kind of were backing me. And they were like, so the feeling was you're on your own. You're either going to just continue on social media telling people to do this or do that, or you're going to say it's enough. I'm going to speak up for other parents out there who feel like they don't have a voice. And I'm going to call out what I'm seeing. What I'm seeing from my perspective is like, it's almost like 30 years ago, the government going and putting a 5-star health rating on a pack of cigarettes. We would never accept that. How are we as a society allowing our government to endorse these ultra-processed foods that are linked to cardiovascular risk? They're linked to anxiety, depression, a 25% increase in ADHD-like symptoms, and get this, premature death as well.
Oh my heavens.
Besides cancer, type 2 diabetes, metabolic disease, and who do you know that does not have some kind of chronic illness, some kind of gut issue? Children are being diagnosed with ADHD, spectrum disorders. And I just thought, more people are dying of issues linked to what they are eating than to anything else, right? And I just felt like I had to speak up because we're all in this together and we actually need a unified voice. We can't all be doing this in silos and our own little worlds. I think there are a lot of us who are saying the same thing, but we're coming to it from different angles, which is amazing because it resonates with different people. But there's got to be some kind of unifying movement to bring us all together to make change.
This is where the Real Food Rating has started?
Correct. So the system was broken. I wasn't being heard. And for me, it was very clear we need an algorithm. So the Health Star rating is based on an algorithm that just takes macronutrients into account: protein, fiber, fat, sodium. It's not looking at where the food comes from. It's not taking into consideration the additive load. So I've spent like a year's working on another kind of algorithm and looking at how we could start to assess foods in a very holistic manner. You have people out there who are looking at foods and they've gone to the other extreme and they're just looking at additives. You got to look at the full picture. We can't just negate traditional science, nutrition science. Protein, sugar, sodium, it is important, but so is processing, so are additives. So I felt like a nutty professor and I came up with this new algorithm and I started to rate foods based on this algorithm. And for me, I see all of these different diets out there with different names. I have never, ever been, I've never promoted any diet, never been keto, paleo, vegetarian, flexitarian. To me, it's just all names. What I've always been about is eating food as close to nature as possible. And that to me is called real food. And so I came up with this concept of the real food rating because what we're looking at when we look at food is how close to real food is it? And that's where the Real Food Rating began.
You mentioned the petition before. Tell me more about that.
That's just a week and 1 day. So 8 days ago, I decided to launch a petition. And Nat, I have to be honest with you, I was really nervous. I'm writing a book at the moment. I'm developing an app. I'm a single mom. There's a million other things going on. And I'm like, do I really need to do a petition? Like, what am I doing?
Yes, the answer is yes.
I've never campaigned before, but I just really felt like I was getting more and more messages and DMs from parents saying, yeah, we can't, this is really wrong, but what can we do? And I thought, you know what? That's a very good question. What can we do? And so I thought a petition. Let's show the government that how many voices want things to be changed. And so started researching and decided change.org was a very good platform and, got my messaging right, put up a petition. And I was really nervous. I was hoping for a lot of support from the additive-free community. We got to about 2,500 signatures, which I thought was great. There was a lot of support from amazing people in the community. There was a lack of support from some, which I found surprising. If you're spending a lot of time, talking about on social media, why wouldn't you get behind a petition like this? But the good news is we went from 2,500 and over in a week, we landed on, I think 10 signatures away from 12,000 signatures.
Oh, wow. And how long is the petition open for?
The initial plan was to keep it going for 4 to 6 weeks, and I was hoping to get to 5,000 signatures. So in 8 days, we've gotten to 12,000 signatures. So the plan is to do the first submission in 10 days' time. So if I get to 15,000, 20,000, even 12,000, done a bit of research. There's been around 17,000. Of course, I've done some research. There's been about 17,000 petitions in Australia. The majority of them don't get more than a few hundred signatures. So even with 5,000 signatures, I could have made a submission. But the more signatures, the more voices, the stronger it becomes. So I'll be going to the food ministers. I will be making a submission. I have in my petition, I've listed out exactly why the Health Star rating system is flawed and what we want to see happen. Because the problem is it's about to be mandated, meaning they're about to make it compulsory on all of the foods in Australia. And that's what got me to act fast. We have to stop this from happening. We need to fix it first before it can be mandated.
So if it's mandated, what does that mean for us?
Okay, so that means that every single product will have to carry a Health Star rating. And with this flawed system that is not calculating these points correctly, it means that a lot of snack bars, breads, wraps, at the moment we have a white bread with 4.5 Health Star rating, and I can share a lot more examples with you.
Yes.
It's going to mislead parents, right? So they're going to be picking up these foods that they think are healthy when in fact they really are those occasional sometimes foods. Some of them even should just be in the confectionery aisle. But the other concern that I have, and maybe is even more pressing, is clean label brands, in order to get higher Health Star ratings on the current algorithm, they will have to reformulate. And I've seen this with some brands that I love. They have to start putting in the isolated proteins like soy isolates. They're going to have to start putting in synthetic fibers to boost their fiber ratings, because some of these ultra-processed foods are scoring higher than these clean, real food products. And, I'm all about protecting the good guys. If you're a brand and you're formulating with integrity, I want to celebrate you. I want to applaud you, because we need more brands to be formulating clean label. But if they are getting penalized for doing so, then if you're coming up with an amazing idea for a muesli bar range or, a cookie range or whatever it may be, straight away you're going to have to think, but if I use these ingredients, I'm going to get a low health rating, and I'm going to have to use all these synthetic isolated fibers and add in the additives, and we don't want that to happen.
And it's often the smaller brands that are going to be creating or that have created these products that you're talking about.
Exactly.
Because a lot of those brands have the integrity behind them.
That's right. I'm working with a lot of them. So one thing, as part of the Real Food rating, I have created the Real Food certification pathway. So for any brand, and I've got very strict criteria. And so if a brand qualifies, they can become Real Food certified. And the brands that I'm working with and speaking to, they are some of the most lovely people with such beautiful, passionate souls. They want to bring products to market that are truly nourishing, and they are being, some of them have been kind of, it's a hard word, but bullied by some retailers to reformulate in order to get those high health stars. And I want to stop that. And as I said, I feel like with my platform, what I want to do is applaud those brands, give them some kind of recognition. And then when other people are thinking about formulating or bringing, new products to market, hopefully they can follow suit.
What important work you're doing. Can you give us some examples of foods that we probably think are healthy for our kids?
Well, I haven't really launched this yet. I'll be launching it on social media. So by the time, hopefully people are listening to this, it will all be up. But I've just done a big expose, or I guess review, of some of our most popular bread wraps. So a lot of people move from bread to wraps because they come across as healthier, right? So if you, as adults, if you're going to the gym and you want low carb, high protein wraps, they're there. If you want a spinach wrap, they're there. A sweet potato wrap. unfortunately, these wraps are some of the most ultra-processed foods on our supermarket shelves. I've just done a review, and a lot of them have over 20 ingredients and around 8 additives. Some of these additives are linked to cancer and cardiovascular disease risk, and they carry 4 and 5 health star ratings. A traditional wrap should have 3 or 4 ingredients. Think about it. Flour, water, some oil, salt, bit of yeast. Some, they don't even need yeast. These wraps that I am reviewing have 20 ingredients, and the claims on the front of the packaging are just amazing. You'd think they're so good for you. So that's been a real eye-opener. I've been talking on radio and I've been on the news talking about it, and there is one wrap that gets a 5-star health rating. So the problem is, just to share with you, there's no watchdog over how these health stars are being assigned. So it's actually the manufacturers who are using a public health tool as more of a marketing tool, and they're not being penalized for doing so. So that's one of the changes we want to see. The previous category I did was muesli bars. And again, how many kids do you know that go to school with an Uncle Toby's muesli bar or a chocolate muesli bar, a Milo muesli bar? A Milo muesli bar has 9 different sweeteners, yet it gets a 4 health star rating. So muesli bars, breakfast cereals, wraps, breads, supermarket breads, these are some of our worst offenders. Yogurts, and also for mums and dads out there who are, trying to do right by their own bodies and they're going for low sugar or fat-free, some of those products are also the worst offenders. If something says high protein, low carb, you bet it's got those additives and those ingredients that you really, don't want in your diet. And a lot of the people who are moving towards these seemingly healthy products, they have gut issues. They have chronic illnesses. So that's what we have to look out for.
How do your kids feel about their lunchboxes? I don't know how old they are. I should have asked you that before we started. Are they ever asking for these foods that you're talking about? How do you navigate with them? Being a mum yourself, not just a health professional, but also a mum.
Okay.
That can be a tricky conversation to be having.
It is. Nat, I think one of the reasons why I really started promoting healthy foods was when my 14-year-old, my oldest is now 14, when he was a baby and we were in a mother's group, and I felt a bit ostracized because I wasn't giving him the typical types of foods. And I felt like I never want my children to be ostracized, because I know in my heart that this is the right way and we should all be kind of doing it this way, and those foods should be for later on or the occasional. So in the beginning, it was hard when they were little. These same mums who I felt ostracized by, a year later, they were all coming to me after I wrote my first book and asking me for advice.
Right.
So I think I found my groove when they were little. And and this is what I share with parents. When your kids are little, you are actually in control and they don't know any better, right? So it's the kind of foods they see you eating that you've got in your home. And we could talk about, a starting solids. I do have a book coming out, so there'll be lots of tips in there for people. But as my children grew and socialized, I never wanted them to feel different. So my motto and my philosophy has been, in the home, we have nourishing, wholesome foods. And when they're out and about, they eat what is on offer and what their friends are eating. How does that translate? So I've now got a 14-year-old, and he would be cringing if he knew I was speaking about him. Now sometimes like breathing, doing anything's a bit cringy. I'm at that point. It's really lovely to see how things have progressed with him. When we're in the home, he loves healthy food. When he goes to school, he'll get beautiful thermos meals, sourdough sandwiches, and he has to have a full-on salad every day. I mean, some of the time, my time goes into chopping vegetables and lettuce for him. But does that mean after school, when all of his friends go to Macca's or Guzman and Gomez or wherever they go, does that mean he's going to stand there and go, no, right, it's got additives? My mom said no. Of course not. He's going to enjoy, he's going to eat. And when he comes home, if he's had a day that doesn't feel balanced, first thing he'll do is go to the fridge and ask for a lettuce. And I've literally got to stop him from biting into it like an apple. It's got to be washed. He's not interested. So
that's amazing.
It's very, very balanced. And I love that. I love the fact that he's not fixated when he goes out. He's not worried about, what he's eating. But when he's in the home, he really appreciates healthy meals always eats his vegetables. So I really see the balance, and I don't think that teens or kids should be too focused on what's in the food they're eating. It's up to us to just role model that balance and those healthy eating behaviors. And my daughter, unfortunately, I've gotten to the point where she's like, Mum, it's really embarrassing that you're sending a unicorn thermos to school. I'm 11 years old now. Can you please go and get me a plain thermos? So I had to, all of her beautiful bento style lunchboxes with unicorns
that
and
you spent
mermaids.
a lot of money on.
Now, she just wants plain looking.
Adult looking lunchboxes.
Adult looking. But the kids know there will always be vegetables for recess, for lunch, and it's just that real food that they have. Doesn't mean, and I just want any parent to understand that it's not an all or nothing approach. If you're doing, you've got that real food going in the home when they're out and about, or if there's a party and someone brings a lolly or chocolate to school, she's going to have it and she's going to enjoy it. And I feel okay knowing that the basis, the foundation of her diet is clean. And it's also about the staples, Nat. If you're feeding your kids bread, wraps, cheese, yogurts, if you get your staples right, that foundation is laid. The occasional foods aren't a big deal breaker.
I absolutely agree with you there. One thing I've always done with my children is I've referred to it as fresh food rather than healthy food, because no kid wants to eat healthy food.
No.
So if my kids would say, well, why can't I have that? I would say, well, we eat fresh food. So that usually means we make it. We don't buy it. And just that little reframe really helped with them being able to sort of go, that we eat fresh food at home.
Yeah,
not
love
from
that.
Not from a package.
Yeah.
When my daughter was really little, she'd never seen party food before, and I never forget. And I kind of did feel a little bit heartbroken but sort of proud at the same time. But she was probably 2, and the party was an older 4 or 5-year-old's party, and there was everything on offer. And she was standing there with the carrot sticks, the cucumber and the strawberries, fully having the best time. And I said to my husband, there was all this other food. She had no idea. She'd never seen it before.
Yeah.
When they're little, you're right. You're in control there. What do you say to the parent, however, who hasn't known this, has bought a lot of these highly flavored, highly processed foods into the home? That transition away from those foods can be difficult because they're addictive.
They're actually created to be addictive. They hijack little ones' brains and bodies. So that's the kind of flavors and taste they crave. So there does have to be a transition time. So what I usually say is it's all about small steps. Don't think about it as this whole big overhaul. You've got to go slowly with children, right? Swapping out one thing at a time. So if you, for example, your kids are already hooked onto sugary flavored yogurts, looking at what are some of the better swaps and just working on that, and then moving on to their bread, then moving on to the cheese. So you do this reframe, you go slowly, and remember, small swaps can actually make a huge difference. If you swap from a squeezy yogurt, if your child, and this is actually based on a real case study, had a child that was having 2 squeezy yogurts a day. Each of these squeezy yogurts had around 4 teaspoons of sugar per yogurt. His mum came to see me very concerned about his health. She had actually just gone for, this was before, back in the day, she was having a gastric band. She had been obese, classified as obese, and was having a lot of health issues and didn't want her son to follow in her footsteps. So we swapped out the squeezy yogurt. She came back to me 2 weeks later, really upset, saying, I didn't manage to make all the changes I would have liked. The only thing that we've done is we've changed over the orange juice. He was having about 1 liter of orange juice a day to water. And we've swapped out the squeezy yogurt for the brand you recommended, which had less than 1 teaspoon of sugar per pouch. And we've dropped down to 1 pouch a day. So when I explained to her over a course of the week, and I don't have my calculator now, but she was saving her son from around 40 teaspoons of sugar a week, she understood how small, simple swaps can make such a massive difference. So that would be the first thing. Focus on one thing that you can, swap for a better option. Number 2, reframe food for your children. So if there's been a lot of stress around meal times, change it up. Sometimes when clients come to me, I say, forget about the food. I want you to focus on connecting with your child at meal times. If everybody's stressed in the evenings, don't rush to the dinner table. Maybe let them have a bath first, play some, calming music, light some candles. Just get the atmosphere a bit more under control or calm before you have that meal. And get them involved. So when you go to the supermarket, take them with. Don't force them to try new things, but ask them to choose it and put it into the trolley. Oh, I think we're going to eat more kale. Can you go and choose the kale bunch that you think would be nicest? Yeah, this looks terrible. Well, I'm not asking you to eat it. Mum really wants it. And then get them involved with cooking. It's an activity, a great rainy day activity. And that way you can batch cook a batch of black bean brownies or choc zucchini muffins, but get them involved and don't force them to eat what they've made with you. Make it fun, make it meaningful, and make it a point of connection rather than a point of pressure.
They're great tips, Mandy. Thank you so much for sharing those. I think that there's really something that we can all apply. But one other thing before we wrap up, monkey see, monkey do. How important is it, in your opinion, that we actually start to provide the example? And how relevant do you think that is in terms of your clients and what you see the behaviours of the parents, to your point of what you just mentioned? Could it be actually also us starting with ourselves to provide that example?
I'm so happy that you've asked that question because it really does start with us. And I say to anybody who is watching this, even if even if you didn't start on this real food, fresh food journey with your first or your second and you're having your third, you can apply this. But when you have a baby, it is the most perfect time for you to go on a real food reset because it's no longer just about yourself. It's really about creating this foundation for your whole family. What you eat, your kids are going to model. So, you have to start doing it for yourself. But that's not just about the food you're eating. That is about self-love. That's about self-acceptance. That's about talking about your body in a very positive manner. Never putting yourself down in front of your children. Never talking about the fact that you want to go on a diet and lose those kilos to fit into your jeans, which no longer fit you. We have to be really careful about our language. Our children are always watching and they're always hearing. So first of all, we never say the F word. And that is not that F word, but we never talk about ourselves in terms of thin, fat, overweight, underweight. We talk about ourselves in terms of how healthy we feel and how good we feel in our bodies. We also show our kids role model the types of foods we want them to eat. If you want your children to eat more vegetables, have them cut up in the fridge and let them see you coming home from work or when you get back from school pickup, not going and grabbing a box of biscuits, but actually going and getting some carrot and celery sticks and some hummus from the fridge because they're going to, follow you. If we're having family meals, we want to participate. We want to eat the same types of foods as our kids. There's no such thing as kids' food and adult food. We should all be eating the same food. But, if you want to look after your kids' health, the best thing you can do is look after your own health first.
Such an important message. Now, for anyone that's listening and wants to find you, where is the best place for them to do that?
They can head to realfoodrating.com or they can follow me on social media.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the work that you're doing. This is so important and it's not always easy to go against the grain or to stand out or to stand up for what you believe in. So I think it's such an important thing that you're doing and such important work you're doing for all of us. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Nat.
And also thank you for being here today. For those that have listened and love this, go ahead and make sure you share this episode around. I think it's a really important message for everybody, and us as parents can use it as a check-in to maybe check in with ourselves, see how we're doing. And of course, like I said, we create that example for our children. So I think it's just really important. So I'm going to stop talking. Thank you for listening and see you next time.